They kept the receipt for the water bottle. That is the detail that changes everything, because the receipt is not something a man keeps when he is walking toward death. It is something he keeps when he believes he is coming back. On a rainy afternoon in August of 1966, two electronics technicians arrived in Niterói, Brazil. They bought 2 waterproof raincoats. They bought 1 bottle of mineral water. One of them seemed nervous. The waitress later remembered him checking his watch again and again. Then they climbed Vintém Hill. 3 days later, a young man flying a kite noticed a terrible smell in the grass. He followed it up the slope. And there, lying side by side, were 2 dead men in formal suits, raincoats, and handmade masks of lead. No blood, no obvious struggle, no clear cause of death. Only a notebook, and one line that still reads like an instruction from another world. At 16:30, be at the specified location. At 18:30, ingest capsules. After the effect, protect metals. Await signal, mask. This is not just a story about 2 men who died. It is a story about a plan. The question is whether the plan was theirs. Their names were Manoel Pereira the Cruz and Miguel José Viana. They were not drifters. They were not tourists. They were not lost hikers wandering into the wrong place. They were skilled radio and television technicians, men who worked with circuits, valves, signals, frequencies, and machines that could pull voices from invisible waves in the air. In the 1960s, that mattered. Radio was still magic to ordinary people. Television was still a kind of miracle box. And to men like Manoel and Miguel, the invisible world was not fantasy. It was engineering. Signals existed. You just needed the right equipment to receive them. That idea seems to have followed them beyond normal electronics. In the months before their deaths, they were connected to experiments that blended technology, spiritualism, and the possibility of contact with forces beyond the visible world. Some accounts describe them as part of a circle of scientific spiritualists, people who believed the supernatural could be approached like a laboratory problem. Build the device, tune the signal, prepare the body, wait, and then maybe something answers. On August 17, 1966, Manoel and Miguel left home. They told their families they were traveling to buy work supplies, possibly also a car. They carried money. They boarded a bus from Campos dos Goitacazes toward Niterói, a city across Guanabara Bay from Rio de Janeiro. They arrived in the afternoon. It was raining. At a local shop, they bought 2 waterproof raincoats. Not old coats, not random coats, matching new coats purchased that day. Then they stopped at a bar and bought a bottle of mineral water. The young woman who served them noticed something wrong. Miguel was nervous. He kept checking his watch. Not once, again and again. That detail matters because the men were not improvising. They were keeping time. Somewhere in Miguel's pocket was a notebook. Inside it was a schedule. 16:30, be at the specified location. 18:30, ingest capsules. After the effect, protect metals. Await signal, mask.
At around the same window of time, the 2 men left the bar and headed toward Vintém Hill. Then the clean timeline breaks. Some witnesses later described a jeep. Others spoke of additional men. A person may have given them a ride, or they may have walked. The truth disappears into a gap of minutes that no investigator ever fully closed. But the destination was clear. They went up. They did not come down. Vintem Hill was rough terrain, grass, brush, stone, and poor access. That is one reason police did not immediately recover the bodies once they were reported. The hill itself slowed everything down. Before the official discovery, there was another moment. A man reportedly saw the two figures on the hill and thought they were sleeping. He told a patrolman. Nothing happened. By the time the bodies were finally reached, they had been exposed for days, and that delay may have destroyed the one thing that could have solved the case: their chemistry. Because if the note is true, the men ingested something. Capsules. But no capsules were found, no container, no clean toxicology result, no simple answer waiting inside the body. The scene only gave investigators more questions. The men were lying side by side. They wore formal suits beneath raincoats. Near them were towels, a bottle, scraps, and notes, money, and the lead masks. The masks are the image everyone remembers, but look closely at them and they become even stranger. They were not full masks. They were not helmets. They were not real radiation protection. They were handmade pieces of lead shaped like eyeglasses, with no stems and no eye holes. They protected only the eyes, and badly, which means they were probably not built for practical safety. They were built for belief. Someone expected light. Someone expected a signal. Someone expected a moment so intense that the eyes needed shielding. The notebook is the center of the case, not because it explains what happened, but because it proves something was supposed to happen. The famous instruction is short, broken, and cold. 1630, be at the specified location. 1830, ingest capsules. After the effect, protect metals. Await signal. Mask. It does not sound like a diary. It does not sound like a suicide note. It sounds like a checklist, and that matters. A suicide note tries to explain emotion. A checklist tries to control procedure. If Manoel and Miguel wrote it, then they believed they were following a process. If someone else wrote it, then the note may have been a script, and the men may have been following instructions given by another person. That is the first fork in the mystery. Were they experimenters, or were they targets? The phrase protect metals makes no clean sense. Protect which metals? The masks? Electronic equipment? Something they carried? Or is the phrase a bad shorthand for a ritual instruction no outsider was meant to understand? Then comes the final part. Await signal, mask. The case is built around that missing signal. What were they waiting for? A light? A transmission? A hallucination? A person? Or did the signal arrive exactly when it was supposed to, just not in the form they expected? The most grounded explanation is also the most tragic.
Manoel and Miguel may have voluntarily taken a substance as part of a ritual experiment. Maybe they believed the capsules would help them contact spirits. Maybe they believed the masks would protect their eyes from an intense light. Maybe the towels, water, timing, and location were all part of a homemade protocol, half scientific and half spiritual. Then the capsules killed them. No murderer, no alien craft, no secret weapon. Just two men, a dangerous belief, and a substance no one ever identified. This theory fits many pieces. It explains the schedule. It explains the masks. It explains why they seemed nervous but still proceeded. It explains why there were no signs of violence. And it explains why the bodies were found where the note said they should be. But it does not explain everything. It does not explain why no capsules were found. It does not explain why money may have been missing. It does not explain the reported Jeep. It does not explain why the investigation failed so badly at the exact point where science was needed most. There is another version of the story. In this version, the men did not simply walk into death. They were led there. The missing money becomes important. The possible Jeep becomes important. The nervous watch checking becomes important. The note becomes less like a personal plan and more like a set of instructions used to control them. Maybe someone knew what Manoel and Miguel believed. Maybe someone understood that if you tell a believer the ritual must happen at a certain time, in a certain place, with a certain capsule, he may obey without force. That would make this a perfect crime. No visible wounds, no struggle, no murder weapon. Only victims who appeared to have done everything to themselves. Still, the robbery theory survives because of one uncomfortable question. If this was only an experiment, where did the rest of the money go? Then there is the theory everyone clicks for and serious investigators handle carefully. The UFO theory. Brazil in the 1960s had its own wave of sightings, rumors, spiritualist groups, and people trying to blend radio technology with contact experiences. Some accounts surrounding the lead mask's case describe strange lights, luminous objects, and previous experiments by the men. The notebook's language seems almost designed to feed that interpretation. Await signal, mask, protect metals. To a believer, those words sound like preparation for contact. To a skeptic, they sound like evidence of expectation, not evidence of an actual event. That distinction matters. A person can die waiting for a signal even if the signal never existed. But the UFO theory remains attached to the case because the scene looks like it belongs to it. Two men in suits, lead masks, a hilltop, a timed ritual, a missing cause of death. It is the kind of image that creates its own mythology. And mythology is difficult to kill, especially when the forensic record is empty. The most disturbing part of the lead mask's case is not the masks. It is the failure. The bodies were not recovered quickly. Decomposition advanced. Toxicology was not successfully performed when it mattered most. The alleged capsules vanished before they could be identified, if they were ever present at the scene at all.
The exact role of other people was never established. The money question was never fully resolved. The note was never fully decoded. And because the first days failed, every theory afterward had to grow inside the same empty space. That is why the case is still alive. Not because there are too many answers. Because the most important evidence was lost before anyone understood what it meant. So return to the receipt, the small, ordinary piece of paper, the water bottle deposit. It suggests something human. They expected to return. Whatever Manoel and Miguel believed would happen on Vintem Hill, they probably did not believe it would end with two bodies in the brass. They may have expected contact. They may have expected proof. They may have expected money. They may have expected a man in a jeep to keep his word. Instead, they became the evidence. Two technicians who spent their lives working with signals climbed a hill and waited for one final transmission. If it came, no one knows what it said. If it never came, then the silence killed them anyway. The official cause of death remains undetermined. The masks remain useless. The note remains broken. And the receipt remains the smallest clue in the case. Not proof of murder, not proof of accident, proof of expectation. They thought they were coming back. They were wrong.